Hello and welcome to Nashville Forward, a community affairs program brought to you by Cumulus Media. My name is Matt Murphy, and I'm your host for this edition of Nashville Forward. We are so pleased to be joined by such a very important part of our metropolitan community, and I'm very excited about the conversation that we're about to have with Stephanie Coleman. She is the CEO and president of the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, and she joins us on Nashville Forward. Hey, Stephanie.
Hey, Matt. Good to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. I'm going to learn so many things today. I can feel it because I'm so ignorant about the nature of what you do and how you do what you do. And I have no idea how you manage to herd the cats that I can imagine that you herd on.
It's my professional title is cat herder.
Right. So, but I want to. I like to start these episodes by talking about you a little bit and where you come from, your background, and how you got to where you are. So tell us a little about yourself. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, which is just 3 hours away, so same distance as Knoxville or Memphis. My mother was actually born here in Nashville, so I had a bit of a draw to come back to Nashville. So I came back to Nashville for college in 1999. And
where'd you go to school?
I went to Vanderbilt.
Okay.
And my parents had grown up in Alabama, so it was a good central point between Kentucky and Alabama. And Nashville immediately hooked me, mostly, I would say, with its music, music culture. I loved and love music, and that's what has drawn me here and kept me here all those years.
So when you say your parents grew up in Alabama, I was there for 20 years. I've got to ask, whereabouts?
Florence.
Okay, so the northern.
Muscle Shoals area.
That part of Alabama feels a lot more like Tennessee
yes.
than the rest of Alabama.
It sure
right?
does. It sure
you
does.
get to a certain point.
Yeah.
How was life in Nashville back in the day? I've only been here since 2021, and a lot of the folks that I've had the opportunity to meet that are more old school, unicorns they call themselves sometimes, they're like, man, Nashville back in the day was so much. I mean, I guess it's a part of nostalgia that we think of all the good stuff.
Yes.
I mean, how was Nashville back then?
I mean, it definitely had a more of a small town feel. I joke around often that my husband, who's a musician who went to Belmont, he's very nostalgic. So he definitely misses those days of the late 90s and early 2000s. And I do think to some extent he keeps me grounded, because he represents a lot of the mentality of a lot of Nashvillians who think about how easy it was to get from place to place. This was a 15-minute town back then. There's a lot of great venues and restaurants that are no longer here, but think about what we have replaced them with. There's so much energy, so much vibrancy. There's so much opportunity here over that 26-year period. So, it's always a give and take with a city and a region like Nashville that's growing.
I mean, I feel like, and, I know that we'll dive into this over the course of the conversation, but I feel so much like when I got to Nashville, there's just a buzz of a big city, but it does not have the grind of a big city. And I know some people who have to sit in traffic every day might, disagree with me. And there are aspects that obviously we have to deal with. But, I mean, do you get that experience as well?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. One, we are a southern city with that southern charm, that hospitality flavor. And I think that still does very much come through in who we are. And then I think the other piece is our creativity. I mean, we are Music City. And that creativity, that spirit of risk-taking, that spirit of, trying something new, that is very much also a part of who we are. And it's a different kind of grind. I do think it's still a grind, but it's not the hustle and bustle of what you might see in New York or Atlanta or cities like that. It's a little bit more maybe free.
It is in your role, and I want to, I've got any number of thoughts about or questions about what you do on a day-to-day basis, but as the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, I mean, clearly that identity that Nashville has to be a blessing. Is it also a curse or mostly a blessing?
It is 99% a blessing. But I will say, when I started at the Chamber in 2008, at that point we were still fighting a little bit that mentality that Nashville's a country town.
It's a country music town.
Yeah, country music and, the dynamics around hee-haw shows like that maybe our grandparents grew up with. There was a little bit of fighting back on that type of reputation nationally. And that is no longer the case. I
Long
mean, when you go anywhere you go, not just in the U.S., but nationally or internationally, people talk about Nashville and they get excited. They think about Music City. They think about Jack Daniels. They think about, all of the great things that have come out of Nashville, and people want to be here.
When you have Oracle coming to town, it kind of
Yeah,
destroys that.
that's right.
That it's a country town narrative. So you came to Nashville, went to school at Vanderbilt. What did you study in school, and what kind of drew you into what you're in now?
So like a lot of young people, I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I switched majors and was trying to find my path. I studied economics and French in college, and I did not get that dream job that I was hoping for my senior year. So I was kind of left not knowing where I was going to go. I was working at Fleet Feet Sports in Brentwood and really enjoyed getting to be a part of the running community. But ultimately, I decided I needed to go back to school and get a grad degree. So I moved back home to Lexington and got a degree at UK for international business and diplomacy. And then ended up moving to Washington, D.C. for about a year and a half, working for my hometown congressman. But I always knew I wanted to come back to Nashville. So I was looking for that opportunity to find my way back here, and I found that through the chamber.
How did you find D.C.? That was what, mid-2000s?
So I started working up there in 2006 and through 2008. And I was working for my hometown congressman initially in Lexington.
Right. Okay,
and then when I
sure.
graduated from grad school, I got offered the position up in D.C.
It's that's a different world up there. That's I mean, if you've never been to Washington D.C. and you want to find a place that thinks it thinks so much of itself. That's the best way that I could put it.
That's another reason I wanted to get out of there.
Right. My old joke is that Washington, D.C. has three of my favorite things in abundance, and that is history, monuments, and jerks. And
Jerks are some of your favorite things.
And not necessarily
like
that order. Sometimes I tell that story a different way. But so you came to the Chamber of Commerce in 2008. What did you initially do?
So when I was up in D.C., I was the communications director. That's not what I studied in school, but if you're in a world working for an elected official, sometimes you just kind of take the job that's open, right? So I learned on the job how to do press releases, how to work with media, how to be the spokesperson, how to kind of work for someone in that type of political position. And so I came in doing PR and media for the chamber. That was my first job there.
And you have worn, over the 17 years prior to being named as CEO, how many different hats?
About six different hats at the chamber. Yeah.
And so, just that internal level of growth and working under a longtime CEO at the chamber, what was that experience like leading to the moment where you were named the president?
When I think back on that 17 years, first of all, it's hard to believe it's been 17 years. But I was always looking for that next challenge and the next opportunity to stretch myself and learn a new skill set, and did a lot of learning, lifelong learning. And I went back to school again. I got another grad degree at Lipscomb. I got an executive coach. I was reading every book you could imagine on leadership, really just trying to soak everything in. And the one thing I'll say about working at the chamber all that time is it was hard for me to ever think of a better place to be, because the chamber it's at the center of so much of what's happening in the city and region. The business community being at that table and really giving back and being a part of the solutions to make us even better as a community. It's really hard to find anywhere else that will give you that type of experience. So what I did was try to grow my own career within the organization.
Do you think, those 17 years, do you feel like everything was leading to being named CEO?
Looking back now, certainly those experiences built
those
upon
dominoes
each
kind of
other.
fell in the
But
right spots.
at the beginning, the first decade or so, that wasn't in my frame of mind. I was just trying to be the best that I could be in the role that I was in. And when I found myself in a leadership position, leading a team, that's where I really dug in. That's where I really wanted to improve myself and be the best leader that I could be, build the best team that I could build. I experienced everything from the most highly performing, well-functioning teams to the opposite of that. And I think being able to experience what it's like on both sides and knowing how you bring together individuals to be better together than they are individually was something I became really passionate about. And so that led me into eventually thinking, I feel like I could be at that point where I could run an organization like the Chamber. And then I really honed in on that over the past 6 years or so.
So describe, and I want to talk about the 17 years too, but describe the Chamber. Like, what is the function? I like to say, treat me like I'm a complete fool when it comes to this subject, but oftentimes I am. So this is good. So what does the Chamber of Commerce do?
That's a great question because most people don't know. If they're not in that world,
Right.
they don't know. They think we're a part of government or they think we're a civic club. And I think there was a time when we were more in that realm of being a civic club, the club that all of your grandparents used to join.
Right. If you're a business leader,
right,
you're a part of
then
the
you're a
Chamber
part
of
of the
Commerce.
Chamber,
That's
right.
what you did.
But, we are a business association. We have about 1,800 members currently across a 10-county economic market. So we're not just Nashville-Davidson County, we're regional. And our job is to make sure that the region has the best business environment possible so that businesses can thrive here and therefore individuals can thrive here.
Mm-hmm.
And that looks like both us helping businesses grow themselves and find customers and scale. And it also looks like us tackling issues that impact that business climate from an advocacy standpoint, quality of life standpoint, growing jobs here, and focusing on workforce development and education.
And I would imagine that you're working intimately with the governments
Yes.
that you serve,
Yes.
But also obviously working with that business community, and then from there, making sure that their needs are served from a workforce standpoint and all of those types of things. So over the 17 years leading to this January, what would you, if I said, Stephanie, what's the thing that you're most proud of?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing I'm most proud of is the team. We have an incredible team at the Chamber. When I moved into this role, I was really fortunate that I was moving into a role where we have such a strong foundation as an organization, both financially from our board and volunteer leadership, those businesses and community members who are deeply involved in the work of the Chamber, as well as our staff. We have just an incredible staff. They are so passionate about their work and have so much expertise and really give back to the community through the work that they do at the Chamber.
When you graduated into the role that you took over in January, I don't want to assume, but I would think that you want to honor the work that's been done. You want to continue some of the work that's been done, but you want also to bring your own vision to the process. Just walk me through, that transition.
Yes. Yeah. So what I realized when I moved into this role and as I was preparing to potentially move into this role is because we have that strong foundation, we really have a deep sense of what we're trying to achieve. And a lot of that was built through our partnership. Now it's called Partnership 2030, but our partnership initiative has been in existence for 35 years, started in 1990. It's our economic development strategy, public-private partnership. We work hand in hand with government officials across the region. Mayor Freddie O'Connell is co-chair along with Carol Yoakum with First Horizon. That plan and the process of developing that plan every 5 years gives us the clear what we are looking to achieve. And it's focused on those issues that I mentioned earlier. It's focused on community vitality, community mobility, and community character specifically. What I came into the role realizing is that it's not just the what, but it's the how. And so that's really what I shared with the board and with the team was I want us to really lean into innovation, lean into initiation and strategic growth. And what that means is innovation is technology. It's how we as an organization, as well as the community, utilize technology advancements like AI and automation and data analytics to be more efficient and be more effective in everything that we do, be smarter in how we work. And initiation is about being willing to do big, bold things, to bring the right people together and the resources together to make a difference in issues that are rising to the top as the top priority for the region. And then strategic growth, this is a huge priority of mine, is to grow the Chamber. We have 1,800 members. My goal is to grow by 50% in 5 years because I know that as a growing region, we've seen so many more businesses locating here, expanding here, starting up here. We as a Chamber need to represent as many of those as possible. We need to have as many of those businesses at the table across industries, across geographies, across sizes of business. That will make us better at what we do. It'll give us more depth of understanding of what the business community is facing.
So I would think that those business leaders, big or small, would reach out to you. I mean, I guess that there's a collaboration going on there. What's the benefit for them reaching out to you? I mean, I think I see it. I mean, there's just an embedded, institutional knowledge about the region. But what would you say the benefit to a business?
It's really two things. One, for a business, it's an opportunity to grow your own network and to build your customer base and to really be a part of the fabric of the community. So there's both a internal opportunity for businesses to meet their own strategic goals of growth or whatever it is they're looking to accomplish by being a part of that larger network. And then I also view the chamber as a way to get things done. So it is a mechanism through which businesses can be a part of what's happening in our city and region, a part of issues that impact them, that impact their employees, that impact their ability to grow. It's things like housing availability and affordability, regional transportation, workforce availability and education quality. Even issues like childcare are coming up and elder care. These are things that are impacting businesses, and they aren't directly going to go out necessarily and tackle those, but they can be involved in those issues, weigh in, provide their own expertise or provide their own experiences through the chamber as a mechanism to impact change.
So everywhere from, the macro to the micro, right? So you're there. Do you consider yourself a liaison between the businesses and government?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it occurs to me, workforce, obviously, childcare, and all these bigger things, but even the smaller things, like, hey, I'm relatively new. I've only been here a year and a half, but can you find out what the deal with the sidewalk thing is, or what? I mean, even those smaller aspects of growth.
That's one of our primary roles, is to make sure that the businesses understand what's happening in the public sector and what decisions are being made that impact them. Because a lot of times it's happening quickly, and it's maybe in a agenda that's posted somewhere on the internet, but the business community, they're running their businesses. They're not necessarily searching for what's coming up in a Metro Council meeting or at the legislature. So it's our job to inform them. And then it's also our job to inform policymakers and decision makers about the impact of their decisions on business, and therefore the impact of their decisions on Middle Tennesseans, because it impacts them as well.
As people that walk into these businesses on a daily basis, drive to these businesses on a daily basis. So I don't think we think of it this way, but when I look at construction, for example, when I look at a new road coming in, or if I look at growth in a particular area, that's a wonderful thing. I mean, that growth is good. Well, if I'm a business on that street corner, the long term might be good, but the short term might be a little bit frustrating. It's your job to kind of make sure that they understand what's going on on the front end, so there's not frustration on the back end.
Sure.
Right.
And to the extent that we can, make sure that any concerns that they have are heard and addressed.
So AI, I'm fascinated with AI. I'm afraid of it. I think I'm a little bit behind the curve on it, but you bring it up. This is amazing how quickly we are developing into a culture where artificial intelligence can assist in, just every aspect of business life, right?
It's a game changer. And I would say it's both a huge opportunity as well as something we have to be mindful of what are the unintended consequences, because there's both.
Complete robot takeover, Stephanie. That's what the unintended. I saw the Terminator movies. I know what happened.
That's right. All those science fiction movies, they eventually become real, right?
Right. Is that the fear is that there's an overabundance of reliance on artificial intelligence technologies that might, overtake our ability to make some human decisions?
Yeah, I think you hear about people worried that we're gonna become less sharp in our ability to write or communicate. Certainly, personally, I use it as a way to save time. You can save minutes and minutes add on to make hours of a week or a day to speed things along. But we've always got to be mindful of that human element, and where we really need the ingenuity, we need the creativity, we need the authenticity of the human mind to really be driving everything that we do, while also using tools to make our lives easier.
Well, Ms. Boyd in math class always told me that you better learn math because it's not like you're going to have a computer in your pocket all the time. And I'm like, Ms. Boyd was wrong. I do have a computer in my
She was
pocket.
wrong.
So I think maybe that we're kind of adding to that type of concept.
Yeah. I mean, I view it like back in the day when the internet first came about, or email. I mean, think about how much of those technological advancements have changed fundamentally how we live and work. AI is the same way. It's changing how we live and work.
I mean, it also occurs to me that in your 17 years at the chamber, and that has to make storefront operations fearful, but also more innovative in their approach to how they're doing their
Well, and
business.
you saw that during the pandemic as well. So that was just that the pandemic really just shortened the time frame around which businesses had to be innovative. They had to come up with solutions. They had to think about new ways to deliver their products, and it made it clear that it can be done. Same thing with when the internet came about, and same thing with AI today. The companies and businesses that are gonna benefit from that are those who are looking ahead and trying to be on the front edge rather than the back end of these technological advancements.
I mean, I in my normal line of work, I kind of see the natural, and I call it positive tension between these different entities, right? Whether it's government and I mean, I consider that tension to be positive because I think that tension creates growth.
Yeah.
Are we seeing? Are you appreciative of the job that Nashville Metro has done with infrastructure, and how do you think we can do better?
Yeah.
What things have been happening that you're?
I think we look back on several decades and we realize that we've seen this incredible economic growth in Nashville, Davidson County, as well as the region, that was outpacing our infrastructure. So we were outpacing our ability to keep up with it. And we realized that. And so we are behind, and we're playing catch up a bit. Passing the transit referendum in Nashville, Davidson County was an essential first step just to create a dedicated funding source so we can begin to catch up on things that should have been done a decade or more ago. But it's not the end all be all. It is truly just a first step, and there's much more to be done. It is critical for the business community to be involved and aware of what's happening, and for us to continue to focus on where those improvements are needed. And a lot of it is not visible to folks, walking around or driving. It's things that are, it's our water, it's our how we dispose of waste. It's all of those types of infrastructure issues that cost a lot of money, but maybe are easy to kick the can down the road for a while if you don't have an immediate solution for them. And I do think Metro is serious about beginning to address a lot of the backlog.
I know that I don't need to tell folks who have been around like you for the length of time that you've seen this growth happen. But I was watching, I watched these shows called Aerial America, which are great. I mean, I love them. They're on the Smithsonian Channel, and they do state by state. They go to the state and they talk about the history of the state and the various points of interest in a state. And Tennessee came on, and they focused, for a portion of the show on Nashville. And I had to stop the show and go look up when the show was produced. It was produced in 2012, and the skyline is completely different. Yeah. I mean, to the point that there's no Music City Center. There's no hotel complexes behind Music City Center or beside Music City Center. And and I'm just focusing on downtown Nashville. Obviously, when you pull out and you look regionally, I mean, it's amazing the amount of growth that Nashville has seen. Looking from the outside in, I think outsiders can go, boy, oh boy, that has been that has to be an incredible. From inside that process, I mean, do you have the ability to kind of absorb how much has happened in a short amount of time?
I saw this stat recently that nearly 70% of our skyline was built in the last decade.
Wow.
And that is why...
And more to come.
And more to come. So that's why as a Nashvilleian, you might be driving down the street one day and look up, and there's an entire new skyscraper that you didn't know was coming, and you didn't see it being built. It just appeared seemingly out of nowhere.
Right.
That is the experience I think so many of us have had. So that rapid pace of growth is real. It shows that Nashville is a vibrant place where we are attracting investment, but it also shows that with that pace of growth, there are other areas that we've got to be focusing on to keep pace with it.
I mean, do people like myself focus too much on the tourism part of this? I mean,
Tourism's an integral part of who we are here in Nashville. Hospitality is our second largest industry, really based on our music and entertainment brand.
what's number one?
Healthcare is
Healthcare?
number one.
Yeah.
Healthcare is number one. So, I think that we have this incredible legacy in the hospitality industry and specifically as it relates to music and entertainment that we want to continue to nurture and grow. But there's also a character piece. It's what makes us unique.
Mhm.
We want to continue to be a place where people feel safe downtown, where they feel like they can, bachelorette parties can come and feel safe. We want that.
Woo girls.
Yeah. We love them. We love the
sure,
Woo girls.
absolutely, 100%, 100%.
We benefit so much from having the level of tourism that we have in Nashville. The state benefits as well as the city of Nashville, as well as our region in terms of tax revenue that we as Nashvillians don't have to cover because we have visitors coming in.
And I've made the point in my short time here that when it comes, and this is more, of a political discussion, but when it comes to the role of government, for example, in building a new stadium, a new stadium complex that can, benefit concerts and football and all these types of things. My point's always been, a large portion of our tax base comes from money that comes from outside.
Right.
And I promise you that the government is still going to want or need to get the money that it needs to function.
Sure.
Well, if the tourism dollars aren't there, then they're going to need to look to other sources. So it's incumbent upon us to recognize that there's a tremendous benefit for the community to spend a little to get a lot. Right? And to make sure that we keep our front porch nice and tidy and welcoming for those people that want to come here and enjoy the city that we love.
Right. There's always a business case. There's always a depth of understanding with an issue like the new Titan Stadium. And, I think sometimes that's hard to explain and hard to kind of grapple with, like, what are the trade-offs of investing in something like that. But certainly when that time came and we needed to make a decision as a city, we looked at the numbers and we looked at the future benefit, and it made sense.
What is the chamber's role in those types of decision-making processes?
Yeah. Generally, we look at everything through that business and economic lens. So we're going to look at the bigger picture, not just a one-off development per se, but look at what is that broader impact on our business environment, what's the broader impact on the economy, what's the broader impact on the tax base. Is this going to benefit Nashville? Is this going to benefit the region from an economic standpoint?
The elephant in the room then is East Bank, right? Because that's the next big piece. And I understand, and I'm respectful of the 10-county community that you serve in the area, but, that's the one that everybody wants to talk about, right, is what's going to happen there, what's going to go along with the stadium complex once the other stadium is built. You get that question a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it's critical to be a strong region. We have to have a strong core. And that's for, as long as I've been at the chamber, that's been part of what we emphasize is that downtown core really drives the economic success of the entire region.
Well, and I'm respectful of the fact that a lot of cities, I'm not here to talk down about Birmingham, for example, but Birmingham lost that core identity. And they've done a lot over the last several years, maybe 10 years, to try to regain it. But we're blessed to have a core identity down there. And so you utilize that for the betterment of the entire region. Right?
Yeah. And, to the East Bank, when you look at the opportunity, it's essentially a blank slate, a clean slate of what that can be for the community, what it can be for Nashvillians, what it can be to drive more economic opportunity. Both from a kind of a land use and planning standpoint, from a job opportunity, as well as livability. All of those elements need to be baked into what that becomes. And it's going to take, it is complex because there's a lot of publicly owned property. There's privately owned property. It's a huge, huge area of land, much larger than, say, the Gulch. Which has taken 20 years to become 60% developed. You got to keep these things in perspective to understand the time frame that we're talking about and the complexity, and to some extent be patient with it, but also be intentional and deliberate with it. And it's going to take a lot more conversations across sectors to get it right. But it's that important that we've got to keep digging and keep looking at opportunities to have conversations about what the community really needs and what the community wants the East Bank to be.
You brought up Partnership 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Started in 1990. I don't know if it was called Partnership.
It was called Partnership 2000 at that time. Yeah.
And so now we're at 2030. But you mentioned that you kind of reset the mission statement and the priorities. That's a partnership, I would assume, between the governments that you serve and the business community and workforce development and these sorts of things.
It is. So we've got both public and private sector partners in that. We have about 260 companies that invest in partnership, and they are all members of the chamber, but they invest in this economic development strategy above and beyond their membership because they believe in this work. And then we've got our regional partners across that 10-county area, many of them in that economic development space as well as the workforce development space, helping us understand the dynamics within the region, not just in Davidson County, but in that broader area. And every 5 years, we go through the process of getting input into what do we need to be focusing on in the next 5 years, which, when you think about it, is not a very long time. So this plan that we just released, which we will begin implementation in 2026. So we're currently raising the funds and planting the seeds to implement the plan. But it's really focused on where we see we can have the biggest impact in that 5-year period. So I mentioned community vitality, community mobility, and community character. Vitality is about looking at our core target sectors that have made us successful. We are really fortunate that we don't just rely on one industry. We've got a multitude of industries. We've got corporate operations, healthcare, music and entertainment, distribution and logistics, and advanced manufacturing that really create an opportunity for us to be resilient through economic cycles. And we're specifically focusing on technology and innovation as it relates to each of those industries from an economic development standpoint. We're also focused on housing affordability, on workforce and education. That includes issues like childcare, because childcare is a barrier for individuals being a part of the labor force. It also includes the regional transportation piece. And then community character is a bit of a new area of focus for us, but it ties into what we talked about earlier. It's how do we maintain who we are, who we uniquely are as a community, because we know that it's our creative culture and our Music City brand that attract people here and make people want to stay here. And that sets us apart from a lot of our competitor areas. And we want to make sure we're protecting that, nurturing that, growing that. We can't take it for granted. We can't just assume that all of those creative songwriters are going to keep coming to Nashville if we don't deal with issues like housing affordability and transportation.
You mentioned the transportation piece and obviously the transit plan, and Mayor Freddie O'Connell comes into office. He's very dedicated to this process, and I feel like in my regular life as a talk show host, the WeGo aspect of it, the bus aspect of it, got a lot of attention. It was a lightning rod for attention, positive and negative. But what did not get as much attention was just the overall dedication of money and the idea of a city the size of Nashville taking a dedicated line of funding and making sure that we have a focus on transit generally speaking, which is obviously the most important component to all of it.
We were one of only 4 cities, metro cities our size, that did not have a dedicated funding source until this referendum passed. And that was a huge issue for us because we couldn't count on the funds being there year after year. You can't plan ahead long term if you're basing your transportation budget on annual operational costs out of your general fund.
I had an opportunity to speak with the mayor recently, and he talking about transportation. Obviously, I brought up the tunnel with him, and and the fact that the city was not represented at the unveiling of the tunnel, which ultimately was a state and boring company project, was noticed. And I asked him, and the mayor felt like, that perhaps it had been unfairly represented in terms of their opinion about the tunnel. That he's like, I have a lot of questions about it. I have questions about safety. I have questions about infrastructure. Questions about, I want to make sure that the thing's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, the city is in no way against the concept of the tunnel and looks forward to seeing it to fruition. The Chamber of Commerce, I mean, what do you guys think about this and what it could mean in terms of getting people from the airport to downtown? I mean, obviously it's huge for tourism, huge for conventions. I mean, these types of things.
The appealing aspects of this project are that it's 100% privately funded.
Mm-hmm.
And that opportunity does not come around very often in the transportation space. I mean, think about how much it costs to maintain our system right now and how much it would cost to build out the transportation system of the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of money, and it's often a lot of taxpayer dollars. So having an opportunity to address an issue that has come up often in our conversations, even in the partnership process, and we were getting feedback from our members and our investors and from our regional partners, it's that access from the airport that a lot of people talk about. And certainly the downtown to the airport corridor is a kind of a logical place to start. So how do you quickly and easily get folks downtown from the airport where they aren't necessarily needing a car once they get down there? So that's one of the elements that is appealing about this particular project is you can get in this option. It is an option. It is not the only option, but it is an option, and be right downtown in 8 minutes at a affordable cost. So our hope is that it will be successful, that it will reduce congestion along that particular corridor, that it'll take cars off the road. But there are questions that are currently in the process of being answered and explored, and the company is out talking to individuals about what questions they have, and that includes both the kind of the operational mechanics of how it's going to work, both during the construction phase and afterward, as well as questions about the environmental impacts and other impacts to the community. So
the community reaction that I received in talking about this on my radio show was fascinating. One, it was difficult for. I think we're conditioned to believe that a transportation piece has a public monetary component to it. And so overcoming that was like, no, this is all going to be paid for by boring. Yeah. Well, then next it's like, well, then how much are they going to charge me to drive on it? It's like, wait, well, let's know. And so we got to the point where it's like, it's like a tram. It's like almost a subway type system, but it's with, electric vehicles, and you kind of get to that piece. And then, publicly people wanted to know, well, how's it going to ultimately benefit me? And I think the overall impact, I mean, it almost feels too good to be true. I mean, I think it because there's no public outlay of money. It is a win for the community. It seems to be a win for Boring Company in as much as they want to show communities around the United States of America that their concept works to go underground. And the amazing technology that they've been able to develop with their boring technique, it's almost hard to believe. It's futuristic in its nature.
The advancements in that technology are truly astonishing. And that's both in terms of the speed as well as how it's built autonomously, how it's built, how the tunnel essentially through this boring machine built itself as it goes. It's
right. It and for those who don't know, it digs on the front end and it's creating a tunnel on the back end in a singular unit, which is not how tunnels have been built in the past. Right.
That's right. So, for the chamber and the business community, it is innovative. It's bringing this new technology to our community, fully privately funded, and it is a proof of concept. So there's this initial corridor. We as a community get to see how that works. Does it work really well? Is it something that once it is complete and in operation that perhaps we would consider other routes? I think that is when the city, the Metro Council, the mayor, and others will be most involved, is thinking about, okay, yes, you have this initial route that is really directed and led by state, and it's under state right of way to have that proof of concept. Now, what is that next opportunity, and how does the city want to engage in that? Do they want to lean into that? Where are some opportunities for tying this in, not just to the visitor community or business traveler community, but to workforce as well, and getting people back and forth who live here.
And a lot of people in Murfreesboro called my show and said, "Hey, where's our corridor from
Right,
Murfreesboro?"
yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I mean, you never know.
hmm
I mean, you don't know. I mean, once you build some of those travel corridors, maybe I've heard Gaylord Opryland Hotel. I've heard. I mean, there are other options out there
Sure.
for it, and it's just one small aspect of growth that creates that overall mosaic that you deal with on a daily basis.
Right. But it's important to remember that this is just one option, right? This
Right.
is not,
Right.
it
It
is
doesn't
not
take away from anything else.
correct. It
Right.
does not impact our ability as a city, as a region, to think about what we need to improve transportation across county lines, to get people from point A to point B faster, to reduce congestion, and to just give more choices.
How is how's the Nashville area's economy comparatively speaking to the
Mhm.
rest of the
Yeah.
country?
I've seen some statistics recently that are, we are so fortunate to be in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee. I'll just say that. When you look at the state, just as an example, the Nashville area, our region, makes up about 30% of the state's population.
Mm-hmm.
We make up about 35% of employment. We make up about 40% of GDP or economic output. We had 7 out of 10 of the jobs that were created in the state of Tennessee were in Middle Tennessee last year. That's from May to May 2024 to May 2025. 7 out of 10 of jobs created were right here in Middle Tennessee. That is a record or close to a record. Typically, we're about half of the state's jobs created. So that just shows you how much vibrancy, activity, economic opportunity is right here in Middle Tennessee. And part of that is the broader business environment, low tax environment in the state of Tennessee. We have a really business friendly environment here. We also have the airport. We were talking about the airport earlier. What a great asset for our region to have an airport that is so forward thinking, that is really building to the needs of the next 10, 20, 30 years, but
Oh,
is doing it in a fairly seamless way.
well, and the impact that will have on our obviously tourism is a big deal, and when you think about some of the larger events that Nashville wants to be a part of, that are not just regional events, but these are national and international. And you cannot, I would think, as the president of the chamber, I mean, it's difficult to even conceive of buying that level of positive publicity that would happen nationally and internationally for some of those moments. And you have to have components like the airport and infrastructure like hotels
Right.
and the travel infrastructure in order to be able to
Yeah.
accomplish
And you
this.
can look back at Nashville's history and see moments in time where we have invested back in ourselves, even when it didn't seem logical at the time. So I'll point to when Mayor Carl Dean was making decisions and really advocating for the Music City Center to be built during a recession. And we got that done. And look at where we are and look at how we've benefited from that now. It would have been so much more expensive to build that convention center years down the road. But he pushed it forward at a time when the costs were lower. And we really saw the impact of that on our hospitality and tourism industry. And then that leads to other opportunities. So you have travelers coming in, business travelers who then say, Nashville looks like a great place to grow or expand my business. And you see that domino effect of individuals who come here maybe for pleasure, but they own and run a business, or maybe their child is coming here for college, and they begin to get to know the city and the community, and they realize what a great place it is, and then they come here and invest here.
So let's talk about workforce for a minute. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously the business side of it, and I want to ask you about your relationship with the governments that you
Mhm.
serve. But from a workforce perspective, I would imagine your role is multifold
Mhm.
in terms of making sure that we have good educational opportunities, making sure you mentioned childcare
Yes.
earlier. So how do you service
Mhm.
the working people to make sure that they are served and that they are happy in our community?
Yeah, it's our workforce efforts are multifaceted, and we talked about childcare. There's so much of a need, even at those earlier years of education, for more options and more access for families. We've done a lot of work over the years in our K-12 system here in Nashville, Davidson County. We also partner with all of the higher ed institutions. We have a huge number of higher ed institutions in our region. That's why the other name that we're known by is Athens of the South. It's because of that incredible higher education community. And one of the things that we at the Chamber have focused on is not just recruiting talent from outside of Nashville to Nashville, although that is an important component. It's how do we grow our homegrown population? How do we make sure that those Nashvillians who are born and raised here have access to and the skills needed to get those high wage, high demand jobs that are being created? And so that's why we've done a lot of work focusing on career pathways, focusing on making sure that our educational institutions are providing opportunities for students to get exposure to high wage, high demand careers that will give them an opportunity for economic mobility and economic opportunity and family sustaining wages. All of that is really critical, but it has to be done, early. That career exposure has to be done as early as elementary and middle school in order for it to take hold. So we do a lot of work across that entire continuum, and then also working with employers to identify what their top occupational needs are and top skills needs are, so that we can communicate that back and be somewhat of that convener or facilitator in those conversations.
And then there's the housing piece, and this is it's such a tricky wicket. I spoke to Mayor O'Connell about it, and he walked me through the delicate balance on the government side of because I asked him the direct question. I said, if you are raising property tax rates, ultimately, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, without getting into the weeds, are you making it less affordable while saying that you want more affordable housing in the city? And he walked me through the scenarios. We need. I was like, does that mean that we're talking about government subsidizing? He goes, no, not at all. Well, we do need to pick those areas, and we have plenty of them within the city, where we can have what he referred to it as higher density housing. That's not, in any way lower quality, but that provides those reasonable rate opportunities for people who want to live in the city. I mean, I would imagine on your side of things, you want to see more. You want to see as much of that as you possibly can,
we do.
To make it a more affordable and livable place, so that you don't have people who decide to move out into the suburbs. I mean, that's great if that's what you decide to do, but you're putting those people on the roads, coming back into the city and going back to the suburbs.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is we have done so much study of this topic, so we know both what the gap is. So just in Davidson County alone, the recent Unified Housing Study said that we need 90,000 more units over the next 10 years. We also have the Housing and Infrastructure Study that identifies specific areas of focus. And, all of this work has been done to really allow us as a community to come together, public sector and private sector, to come up with some solutions for how do we get to that number. It's going to take both public sector and private sector. It's going to take creativity. It's going to take looking at every tool we have in the toolbox. And, it can't just be one strategy. We've got to look at everything from zoning, which, Metro Council is really responsible for that zoning piece. And there's active conversations occurring in council right now about certain districts, and the planning department has been really forward thinking and how they can provide increased density opportunities that also maintain the character of the neighborhoods, which is really important to those who live in the neighborhoods, thinking about all the infrastructure needs, thinking about quality of life. You have to look at it holistically, but it is possible to increase density and do it in a way that is additive to the community.
It ultimately is a good challenge. I mean, it's a positive challenge, right? It means that people are coming into the community.
Yes.
People want to participate in the community. People want to be here. And so you kind of look at it that way, right? It's one of those positive challenges. It would be much more of a negative thing if we're thinking, how can we get people to move into these
100%.
these housing places?
When we compare ourselves to a few other communities across the country, these are good problems to have. The challenges of growth are good problems to have.
What are since you've been CEO and president starting in January, what's your relationship been like, I guess primarily with Metro government?
Yeah.
And are there any ways that you would improve those relationships?
I just want to give Mayor O'Connell huge credit and appreciation for the fact that right from the start, he said, I'm going to be a partner in chief. And that wasn't just for the chamber, that was in many aspects of what he does. But one of the ways that materialized with us at the chamber is his willingness to be co-chair of Partnership 2030, that regional economic development strategy. And I mentioned along with Carol Yoakum, who's the private sector co-chair, that's both symbolic and it's real. It means that the mayor himself was sitting down with us as part of the process for creating this plan, was workshopping ideas, bringing issues to bear to that conversation to help us come up with a strategy that really made sense for both Nashville and the broader region. And that relationship continues in regular communication. I mean, to me, that's how you build partnership, is by communicating. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean we're always going to agree on every issue across all aspects of metro government or state government for that matter, or our regional municipalities. But it does mean if we're communicating about what we're hearing from the business community, then our elected leaders and our policymakers are going to appreciate having that information. And that's really the role we see as critical for us, is to be those early communicators, making sure they have all the information possible to make the best decisions.
So let's talk about moving forward. What are some things that you point to as what excites you moving forward 2025 into 2026 and beyond?
Yeah. I think that when I look at Nashville and the region, I see, because we're a growing community, we have a lot more individuals who can really lean in and bring creative ideas to bear, and also, honestly, resources from outside of Nashville coming in, and ideas from outside of Nashville coming in, and I think that what I get excited about is a bigger table. I get excited about expanding our network, expanding who we represent, in order to have more robust conversations, more fruitful conversations, more meaningful conversations. But ultimately, all of the conversations, all the collaboration across sectors has to lead to action. And so that is, at the end of the day, what we're focused on, is getting things done and moving on them, coming up with the great ideas, and then you got to go ahead and start. You may make mistakes along the way, but if you don't start, if you don't try, if you don't work to get something done, you will never know what you missed out on.
What's it like being president and CEO of the Area Chamber of Commerce of what is known as, we're the IT city. We're the IT region of the country. And it feels like the Nashville region has been that for a good amount of time. There's some others that want to lay claim, but I think we've been right there in the mix for a good amount of time. That's got to be exciting.
Oh, it's a great place to be, and to some extent, I feel like it gives us more of that, the ability to operate on a global and international level more than ever before. Not just national, but we are a place where people want to come. They want to move here. They want to grow their businesses here. They want to visit from all over the world. And that's something we should be really excited about. I'm really excited about. I love that aspect of who we are as a community, that we are now a player on a much bigger landscape than we were 2 decades ago.
For the viewers that are watching Nashville Forward right now, what's the message from Stephanie Coleman to the viewership, whether they're business owners or they're new to the community, they're thinking about coming to the community from outside? What's your message?
Yeah, get involved. Get involved. And that could be through the chamber. If you are a business owner or you're in the nonprofit world or really any organization, you can be a part of the chamber. You can address some of these issues that we've talked about by being involved with us, but just be involved in your community. That could look like your neighborhood association. It could look like a nonprofit. It could look like serving on a board or being involved in your church community. That's what we need, is for individuals who live here and who are investing here and who are raising their families here to really care and to be a part of the fabric of who we are. And so that would be my ask and my plea and my encouragement, is just to lean in and get involved.
You're so busy. You've got so much going on. I so appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today.
Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
You've been very kind. This is Stephanie Coleman, the president and CEO of the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, and we so appreciate your time as well. Thank you for being with us on Nashville Forward. I'm Matt Murphy, and we'll see you next time.